Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bastelli? Here. Mrs. Billings?
Here.
Mr. Sirianni?
Here.
Dr. Selly?
Here.
Mr. Pallone?
Here.
And I hereby certify that this meeting has been published in the newspapers in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
Okay, so we have three items on the agenda this evening. The first is a discussion with TNR trap neuter release with Mr. Johnson. Then we're going to have a conversation about no parking on South Lake Drive off Tallahassee. And then, of course, the review of the regular meeting agenda. Mr. Johnson, if you could tell us about the TNR program.
Certainly, Mr. Pallone. Is that? I'm not sure if it's on. Does it work? All right. Sid Johnson, the Health Department for the City of Long Branch, the Director. So we, as you know, the Mayor and Council authorized last October, I think, this MOU agreement for TNR, trap neuter return for 100 cats with the SPCA, and the SPCA would administer the program, and the charge would be $37.50 per cat. So it actually the program actually started functioning in January, and as of a report from the SPCA I got last week, we reached 106 cats. So we have this cat animal welfare group that meets monthly. The SPCA representatives have been coming and every month and keeping us appraised. And so far, I would say that the MOU, it's not the panacea or the magic bullet for everything, but it does give us another option. We've had citizen complaints at houses with many cats. We've asked the SPCA, as per the MOU, to get involved. They've spoken to the homeowners or residents and the neighbors, offered TNR as an option, and it's worked in those instances. There also have been some instances where we had a colony where either the tenant or someone left the cats behind. So the SPCA, since an established colony, will retake those cats back. So, as you know, it involves trapping the cats, spay and neutering them. They were testing for feline leukemia and feline AIDS, virus. Then they do the rabies vaccination and release them. The only thing that has changed is they no longer do the testing of the cats. And the reason it's really more of a medical thing, you test and you find a cat that's positive for either of those two diseases. The question is, do you treat or euthanize? And basically, they don't euthanize cats and they really don't treat them. So I think they've stopped doing the tests according to their medical veterinarian. So if you do decide to renew the agreement, which we checked with Mike over here, our Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Martin, he says we would have the money, another $3,750 for another 100 cats. That would get us through this cat breeding season and hopefully through the end of the year. It would just be really trap, neuter, and release, vaccinate the cats with the rabies vaccine, and return them. And we keep in charge with them. They give you the report. I think we have 20 or so plus colony caregivers. So that's actually a pretty good number. We did one article that we had about 7 or 8, and we put another article in the Atlanticville, or the Link, I think it is, excuse me, and we got a bunch of more people. So it seems to be working well. That's all I could say to you.
So, Mr. Johnson, you recommend, obviously, renewing it for another...
So the MOU allows, both parties agree they would extend it for the same price. So really what we're asking for is if council wants us to continue for the $3,750 for another 100 cats.
That's right.
Which we have covered in the operating budget.
Right.
But it would require an updated MOU.
Right.
It's in the budget.
Okay.
So did you anticipate that, you'd have so many? I'm assuming the fact that there's 100 means that it's a successful program, right?
I would say it is. It's really taken off, and You know, it's an option that we didn't have available to the residents, and hopefully at some point it will impact it. It has to run for a while, obviously, but the hope is ultimately you reduce the population, stabilize the population. So it's been a good tool for us, but also for some of the complaints that we couldn't really address, because before, if we were to take a cat, it was $250 per cat. So that was a big disincentive for us that we couldn't collect so many cats. But here, you can euthanize them and stabilize the population, you know? So.
Even at 7,500, it's a fraction of what we would have spent if we did it on our own.
So
And
can I
that
say-
100 number was set by the SPCA. They're the ones that set it.
I noticed on your spreadsheet, there's one address, there's 26 cats. Now, is that one colony, or is it just a person who?
No, it's one colony. And what we do in that, if the neighbors are complaining, the first, it goes to the first bite of the apple goes to the SPCA. So Chief Licitra will go out, talk to the people. He also visits all the neighbors. He talks of ways that they could keep to try and prevent the same thing we did with Mr. DiStefano, cats from going on your property. But he will, because they've signed the agreement as a colony caregiver, he can reduce the number of the cats there too. So he's done that. And
I mean, that's a quarter of
yeah.
all the cats.
The only other option is once he's exhausted his, his abilities, and we give him 2 months, 3 months, then we have to go through what we did with DiStefano, because we still have our ordinance and the enforcement, but that took 9 months. I mean, we finally rectified that situation,
Yes,
but it
it's
took
much
us
better.
about a year, and it was many times in court, so.
The testing that is going to be withdrawn,
That's right. They're no longer doing the feline immunocompromised virus or the feline leukemia testing.
if there, with respect to the cats that were tested positive, they were just put back into the population?
Correct,
Is there
correct.
any risk to any humans or cats as a result?
So, I'm not a veterinarian, but my understanding is with the immune compromised, the HIV/AIDS, say, it's feline HIV though, they may be positive, but they could spontaneously over time at some point change to negative. The leukemia is, it's usually lethal, but how often, and it can affect the colony too. So there is a risk, not a risk to humans, but to other animals, so.
Is there an additional fee that could convince the SPCA to continue that testing?
Not that I know, well, there is one other issue that I was made aware of, is that the state, they would like you to recapture the cat in 6 months and test it again. And that's one of their real big once you trap these feral cats, it's very hard to trap them again. That's why we only give them the one rabies shot. The rabies shot should be given every 3 years, but it's almost impossible to trap the cats again, so.
So to Mr. Aaron's point then, what is the SPCA's thought process to
Well-
his question, if they're not going to test them anymore and then just let them back?
They're
into
not
the
treating
population?
and they're not euthanizing. I mean, it's like doing a test. If you're not going to, what do you do with the test result when you know it's positive? If there's no ability to do anything with the test
You're not
result,
expanding medication.
why test? So
So it kind of is what it is.
that's what it is. Their veterinarian made the decision. It's a relatively minor part of the cost. I can't tell you exactly how much the cost of the $37.50 was dedicated to that test. But in the scope of things, I'm sure that's the relatively minor part of the test. So if you wanted me to ask, Mr. Licitra is in Ocean Township tonight, and I didn't ask any of their representatives to come, but if you wanted me to do that, they've agreed to continue with the program pending the decision by the mayor and council,
So we have it, are there any other questions? We have it on the, as a resolution to be adopted tonight, correct? So we need to make a
Is it on
decision.
tonight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Vote in on it? Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Michael? Jay? I'm sorry? Mary Jane?
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. Okay, so we'll
You
keep
know,
it on
so-
and proceed.
You can always look into further stuff later on, but at least get on the program.
Now, certainly, we'll delve into it deeper and get you that more information, all right? Not a problem.
All right, thanks, Mr.
In
Johnson.
a couple of weeks, get the information.
I know where you live. I'll get it to you, Michael.
No, I'm not talking about that.
Oh.
A couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
It's not needed next week.
You got it.
Johnson, I just want to tell you, the annual report that you sent for the health department
Yes.
was the first time we've seen anything like that in quite a while.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for
All
it.
right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Sally.
Okay, so next we have the no parking discussion on South Lake Drive. Mr. Hayes, is that you or Chief Roebuck?
Chief Roebuck is going to.
You can do it if you want, sir.
As far as I go.
That's it? All right, so we had a few complaints about parking during the summertime here on South Lake Drive. Some of them came from our own people. During the summer, it gets crowded. People park on both sides of the street, the north and the south side, and it's hard to get cars through. And we certainly couldn't get any fire trucks or any other emergency equipment through there. I know also the resident at the corner has complained about the same thing. So our proposal is to restrict it to parking on one side of the street, the south side of the street, and you'll see by the red line is where we want to post no parking from Ocean Avenue to Elbron Avenue. That street, South Lake, is only about 27 feet across, so it's a little tight when you get two cars parking side by side there. You can see North Lake on the other side is closer to 40, so that's why we let them park on both sides of the street there on North Lake Drive.
What's the impact on the neighborhood with no parking on that whole side?
It's the neighborhood. I think the residents will be fine. I think most of them are
They want it?
want it.
Okay.
You know, it's used by people who go to the beach, but although now that beach right there is really not being used anymore since they're building houses there, I'm not sure exactly.
We're operating that tech.
Oh, yeah, so you might have some beachgoers go there. Fishermen, although they usually tend to go a little further down, you might have a few fishermen work there. They can still park on the other side. They can park on the south side of the street, and they can also park further down. It'll just be a little bit further a walk for them. They can park past
West
Elbron, yeah, nearer to the trestle on the west side.
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't think anybody uses that to park.
So basically, you're saying all these people are parking there, and I'm trying to, where are they all coming from?
Going to the beach.
Oh, the beach parking those.
Going to the beach, yeah. It just gets, you know, in the summer, it gets a little, it gets
So on,
Too
just to
crowded.
confirm, on North Lake Drive, you're still parking on both sides?
correct.
Parking on the north side of South Lake beyond Elbron is good.
Correct.
And both sides of Elbron Avenue as well?
Yes, correct.
No, the one with the,
The only restriction would be the north side of South Lake Drive or Elbron Ocean, just in the red line area that you see, due to the narrowness of the road.
It's probably an average of 27 feet. You know, by the way it moves, sometimes it's as low as 25 feet in there as it gets a little.
are we going to
gets a
notify
little
the
tight.
families, the people there that were?
Well, I've heard from the resident on the corner already. He's in favor of it, and we can let the other ones know if you guys want to move ahead with that. There's only
Yeah. 1, 2.
24 houses, 5 houses that we can, you know, I can send someone by.
So right now, Chief, what, an emergency vehicle can't get down there, or they have to navigate?
Yeah, they got to kind of, you know, it gets pretty tight. You know, if you have 27 feet, the car is 8 foot and 8 foot, and then you're a
It's really
foot away from the
On
side.
both sides, it's really tight to get.
It gets really tight.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, and it is only, you know, during the summer when it gets very busy. That's when it's like that.
Any questions or thoughts on this?
This has to be done by ordinance?
Yes.
Correct.
Is there any point in us introducing it next time?
Up to you guys.
Really should hold off. You're going to have to reintroduce it to them, explain it to them. I mean, you have your staff working to talk to us, and then they're going to have to re-talk to the next council.
That's true.
Yeah, you can't vote on.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be
ordinance
here
that
to
is
vote,
not-
and
that's
then
been
they're,
introduced,
and then,
So we'll
by
just
right,
wait.
you're gonna have to reintroduce it
I
and speak to
I
all
can
those.
prepare it
council
for you if
members.
you want, and then in your first meeting in July, you'd introduce. If that goes well, then you would approve the second meeting of July. The only impediment is that the July 4th weekend will
Jumps
remain
in.
as is.
Right.
Right.
Jim, let me ask you a question. If the council were to introduce, does an incoming council simply adopt, or do they have to reintroduce
No.
since it's a new group of people?
You know, it's a new group of people. It would make the ordinance subject to challenge. I don't know who would challenge it, but if you wanted to do that and take that position, you could, in theory, introduce the ordinance. You could introduce it tonight because you have a form of it, and move it to the next meeting and have it done. Or you could introduce it at the next meeting and at your organization meeting, which would predate July 4th.
I mean, actually, I was just curious legally, procedurally, what
Well,
the
you-
situation, if you had a different group of people. who-
See, the only bad part is if we don't do it, it's gonna go to the end of, or middle of July.
That's the only
And
downside
And
about
then I
it.
was thinking, but could you do a temporary, no parking signs
We-
until then?
We could actually put no parking signs up and just not write tickets, because someone could fight the tickets without having the ordinance on, but we could post a no parking signs up and just not enforce
I don't
it.
think it would be right for us to do all the work, listen to all, and they have not have their say in questioning, et cetera, and then they're presented.
Have to vote on it.
Now vote on it.
It's your call.
I don't think that would be right.
So let's take a consensus on it, that's fine. To Jay's point, can that be done in the interim?
Sure.
Yeah, so as long as everybody's fine with that, then we'll put up the signs, that way, probably put up the signs in a week or so, it doesn't really get busy till end of June anyway, so we'll put those signs up, and then we'll just wait till it
That
gets
sounds good to
done.
me. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Mary Jane? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, next is the review of the regular meeting agenda. Any questions? Kate?
No.
No.
Joy? Mary Jane?
People.
I have a question about the parking meters. Are they going to be put in use places?
No,
So
Replacements.
they're just replacing
replacing the existing ones.
what's existing?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Were they just worn out, or?
Yeah, every year we have to replace a few.
And what is the refund, $270 refund?
So, the beach passes?
Yeah.
So a lady that lives, recently moved into Neptune Avenue in North Long Branch, purchased a number of beach passes to bring her family to the beach across from her, which is 7 President Park. And
Oh,
she
my.
didn't know that it's the county beach, so she requested a refund.
We're being nice.
Well, yes,
Very nice. No, that's good.
Okay.
yes.
Good. That's good.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? I need a motion to adopt a resolution to go into executive session for the following items. Under contract negotiations, we have the Pier Village 3 carousel lease with Mr. Beckelman, 91 Ocean Terrace tax exemption, also with Mr. Beckelman, property sale of 225 3rd Avenue with Mr. Aaron, Class 3 memorandum of understanding with Mr. Hayes and Eduardo with Mr. Aaron. And then also under litigation, we have COA with Mr. Beckelman. I need a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bastelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Billings?
Yes.
Mr. Siriani?
Yes.
Dr. Selly?
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo?